All right, so we're gonna start out in our space at the end of our mat, if you have a mat, or just standing in a space that is far enough away that you can move forward. We're gonna start out with just some warm-up exercises. So I want you to swing your arms, make a couple circles, pay attention to your shoulders. We did a lot of shoulders on Tuesday's class with the weight. So you might feel a little bit of tightness left over. Some people feel tight the day after an exercise class. Some people feel tight 2 days after. So just pay attention to how your shoulders are feeling as you're making these rotations. Make sure you change directions periodically. And now we're going to inhale up and exhale down into a forward fold. Knees are bent for this first one. You can have your knees straight for any forward fold we do after this, but for the first one, it's always good to bend your knees to protect the lower spine. With your knees bent, lift your tailbone up, reach over to the right, opening up through the side of your hip, the side of your lower back on the opposite side. And we reach over to the left, keeping the knees bent, opening up through the side. Bring it back to center and back roll up one vertebrae at a time, nice and slow. Roll the shoulders back, inhale up. And now if you want to have a straighter knee for this next forward fold, you certainly can. Hold it here, relax, lift through the tailbone, and then back roll up one vertebrae at a time. When you're ready, inhale up. Now we're going to add on to it. Nothing too crazy. Exhale down to the floor. Let's walk it out on our hands into a plank position. Hold that plank, make sure we're engaging our upper back. And now we're going to drop down to a modified plank. It's important when we do our modified plank that we're bending our knees so that we're at the base of the kneecap, the base of the quadricep, not on our kneecap. And take note of where you feel any type of muscle fatigue. Maybe it'll happen in your shoulders. Maybe it'll happen in your core. Maybe your lower back. Then from here, we're dropping down onto our forearms, elbows underneath the shoulders. Take a look at your forearms. Are they parallel lines? We don't want to turn our hands out or in for this. Squeeze the shoulder blades together, drop the chest in between. And then we're going to slowly lower down, belly to the floor, and press up slightly with our hands. Look up at the ceiling, opening up through the front of our neck, opening up through the abs. Squeeze the shoulder blades. Couple deep breaths here. This also helps to open up through the hip flexors, and then we're going to lower all the way down to the floor. Bend the knees, grab one foot at a time, pull the heels back towards the behind to stretch through the quadricep muscle. Now, if that's too much, if your hands are not on your feet at all, go ahead and try it on one side, or lean to your side and see if you can grab it then. From here, release the feet. Pull back, sit back into child's pose, stretch through the lower back. Take a few deep breaths here, releasing any tension in your lower back. Release any tension in your face. This is a no equipment workout today, so we're going to be doing a lot from the plank position. So it's really important right now that you're focusing on opening up the lower back, stretching, and we'll finish with that too so you don't have any pain. From here, back roll up, give yourself a couple cats and cows. Exhale into cat, inhale into cow, and you'll see a lot of yoga poses falling or spilling over into strength, because even though yoga is more of a flexibility centric class, you're still doing strength motions, and it's important to have both flexibility and strength in the muscle. Turn the toes under, walk the hands back towards the feet, back roll up, inhale up, exhale back down to fold. Walk it out just to a high plank. Hold your high plank for 2 breaths. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. Now walk it back to the feet. Back roll up, back roll back down. If you have lower back issues, it's important to keep your knees slightly bent when you're going into your forward fold and coming out of your forward fold. We're 2 breaths in our plank before we walk it back. And keep going with those. We might be at different paces, but I'm going to demonstrate now the modified version. So to modify this, you'll walk it out until your knees can touch the floor, rolling forward, dropping the hips into a modified plank position. Modified plank, we want a straight diagonal line from the crown of the head to the base of the knee, and then walk our hands back, putting as much weight in our hands as we can as we roll up. So that's the modified version. You could do either one. I always invite people to start with the more difficult version and then work their way to the modified once they get tired. Walk it back. And this is our way of kind of assessing our muscle group, seeing if we have any tightness, any limitations. Some days you might feel great. Other days you might feel a little bit more limited depending on what you did the day before, how much you had to eat. All sorts of factors come into play. Couple more of these. This is a great way to open up through the spine, opening up through the hamstrings at the same time as building up strength in our upper body and core. Walk it back. Back roll up. Shoulder rolls. Give your arms a little bit of a break. Let's go right into some plie squats. So we're going to stand with our feet wider than our mat, toes out, abs tight, squat down, bring it back up. So basic plie squat, we're going to add on to this by doing a squat, jumping our feet a little bit inside of the mat, and then doing a narrow squat. Then jumping it wide, wide to narrow, just a little hop. If you're not feeling the hop, you can step it in and step it back out. Just make sure if you're doing the steps that you alternate which leg you're stepping with. And if you notice, if I'm doing this step, I'm rotating my feet slightly. So I'm turning my feet out slightly for the plie squat, turning my feet forward for the narrow squat. So you can do a hop or you can do a step. It's up to you. Make sure we're always thinking our hips back, keeping our back flat. But when we're doing our wide squat, we're keeping our torso upright a little bit more. So narrow squat, I'm leaning forward. Wide squat, I'm keeping my torso upright. And relax, step it out. All right, we're back to a rollout, walkout. Inhale up. Exhale to the floor. Walk it out to your plank. From our plank, we're going to bring same knee to same elbow, right side, left side, and then walk it back. So keep going with those. I'm going to demonstrate the modified version next. So we're dropping down to the knees, rolling out into our modified plank. Then you're just going to walk one knee up, walk the other knee up, and walk it back. Back roll up. So you've got options here. If you're doing it from your knees, also keep your hips low as you're walking your foot up and walking it back. So hips stay low the whole time so you can get the full benefit for your core. Couple more. When you find yourself back to a standing position, wide stance, we're going plie squat to regular squat. You can hop or you can step. Up to you. Just make sure you're breathing. Couple more, keep going. Try to get low. And relax, step it out. All right, let's bring it down to the mat. Give yourself a couple cat-cows here, just to reopen your spine. Squats can put some pressure on the lower spine, as can planks. So it's always good to take some time to reopen through the spine before you go into more exercises, if you feel that you need it. Rolling forward into a modified plank. Hold it here, make sure you're in good position. Take a few deep breaths. And now we're going down into a tricep push-up. So we're gonna keep our elbows glued to our side, chest to floor, press up. Elbows glued to the side. And if you wanna make sure that your hands are in the right position, lay down on your belly. Make sure your fingertips are about in alignment with the front top of your shoulder before you press up. If you can't tap your chest and bring it up, what I want you to do is drop down in slow motion, leading with the chest. The chest is the first thing to touch. And then actually just lay down, take a breath, and then get up however you want. And then slowly lower down again until you're laying on your belly. Take a breath, give your muscles a break, and get up however you want. If that feels too easy, just drop down, tap the chest, press it right back up. So there are a lot of different versions, but as long as we're moving and going through the motions, we're building strength. Go ahead and give yourself a couple wrist rolls after that one. And now it's time for upper back. So you're going to return to that modified plank position. Drop the hips, looking forward. Raise the arm out to your side, and we're going to pulse 10 times. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Sit back into child. Inhale, exhale, back to plank, other side, arm out to the side. Engage your upper back, and we pulse 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Give me a child pose. Inhale and exhale. Rolling forward again. We've got regular push-ups this time. So we're going to make our hands a little bit wider than they were whenever we were doing our tricep push-ups. Both fingers facing forward. Roll out into your modified plank. Drop down, elbows come out a little more to the side. Tap the chest. Pick it up. Keep your abs tight. Core is always engaged, always looking forward. Now, if that's a little bit too much, keep going with your push-ups. But if that's too much, you can come back to your hands and knees and do the same motion. Just make sure no matter what you're doing, at the bottom of the motion, your chest and your wrists are in alignment. Keep pressing. And again, just like with the tricep push-ups, this is too much, slowly lower down, chest taps first. Actually lay on the floor for an inhale and an exhale, and then press up however you want. Slowly lowering down, and then pressing up however you want. It's almost like doing the worm, that weird dance move. Go ahead, roll out your wrists. Body weight strength always uses your wrists a lot more than free weight strength. So it's important to assess how they feel, pay attention to your wrists and how they're feeling. And then we return to the modified plank, and we've got our arm pulses out to the side. Engage the upper back. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Child pose. Roll forward. Pulses on the other side. Ready? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Back to child pose. Roll forward, so we're laying on our belly. You can do whatever you want with your hands. I like to bring my chin to my chest. We're going to raise the right leg up and out, making a big arch motion. Left leg does the same. So we're keeping that leg straight and strong so that we can get as much of our thigh off of the mat as possible. If that's not really easy for you, what you could do is bend your knee and do the same motion. It makes the leverage just a little bit shorter. So you're not working quite so hard to get the motion, but we want to go up as high as we can and out as wide as we can. So you pick how you want to do it. Try to get your leg up as high as you can. Keep going. This works the glutes and the lower back. But sometimes doing Supermans, where we raise our upper body and lower body off of the floor, can put a lot of strain on the lower back without getting as much of the benefit in strength. So this is a really gentle one that works the lower back and the glutes without putting a lot of pressure on your lower back. We're going for quality here. We don't want to get ourselves injured so that we can't do anything for a couple weeks. So it's always better to scale back, make it a little easier on yourself than to go all in, full motion, and strain something and set you back a week or two, sometimes longer. All right, sit back, stretch through the lower back. Roll forward, starting out easy. We're on our hands and knees. Slowly tap the right shoulder. Slowly bring it down. If you were here for yoga yesterday, we did these from a full plank position. So you know, we've got levels. Let's try rolling out to a modified plank. Slowly tap the shoulder, bring it back, switch sides. And the stabilization that we're getting from holding ourselves up on one arm also strengthens through the back of the shoulder and the upper back. Okay, if that's too much or too easy, take it to the next level. Try it from a regular plank. But the idea here is that you can go slowly. So if you're up in a high plank and all you can do is tap and drop back down, then you want to drop down to the lower level so that you can go slow and controlled. Because when we hold ourselves in that position, balancing on one arm, that's where the stabilizer work comes to play. So you pick the right one for you. And I haven't looked at my timer in a while. All right, you've got 10 more seconds of shoulder taps. Keep it going. From whichever position you choose. All right, give yourself a child pose. Stretch through the lower back. And then roll forward. We're on our belly. And we're back to those arches. So up and out. Bring it back, getting that arch as high as possible. Again, if you need a modification, bend the knees and do the same exercise with your feet pointed up to the ceiling. I feel a little awkward, but it's better to feel a little awkward and be safe than to try something that's a little much, especially if you have hip tightness. So just listen to your body. I love strength classes where you do a lot of jumping and you're out of breath and you feel like jello, but that's really combining strength and cardio. And this class is really about just the strength so that we can kind of focus our mind on just the muscles that we're working, not on just staying alive. You know, sometimes when you're in some of those classes, like insanity classes and P90X, I love those classes, but you're focusing on so many different things at once. And that's where we can make mistakes in our strength or in our muscles whenever we move that can cause injury. So this class is more of a back to basics, making sure that we have our core strength down so that when we go into those more high intensity classes, we know that we have a solid foundation of strength so that we're less likely to get injured. They're all good, but it's good to get a mix of different things. We shouldn't be doing the same thing all the time. All right, sit back into child pose. Stretch out through the lower back, open it up. This also stretches through the glutes. And then roll forward. Again, we have shoulder taps, so you can do it from your hands and knees from a modified plank or from your toes. Up to you, pick your starting position and go nice and slow, control. Think control the whole time. And if you ever feel that your wrists bother you after doing classes like this, or that you need a little more flexibility in the wrists, on my YouTube page, I have a yoga for the wrist, or yoga for healthy wrists, or something with the word wrist in it, that has some really good exercises that you can do to keep your wrists strong and flexible. And that one you can just kind of skip ahead, look for the exercises and try them on your own if you don't want to commit to a full 45-minute class. Make sure as we're doing these that we're landing our wrist right under our shoulder. That gives us the most stability. And release. Sit back into child. While you're in child, give yourself a couple wrist rolls, opening up through the lower back, giving your wrist a little bit of a break. And when you feel good, walk it back up into a standing position. Now we're going to do a side lunge. So when we do side lunges, it's crucial that we're doing the right thing with our knees, hips, and lower back. So we're going to step out to the left. I'm bending my left knee, sinking my hips back, keeping my right leg straight. So, and then we're stepping to the right, bending the right knee, left knee is straight, and step back. I don't know why I'm doing it over my mat. So go ahead and step side to side, but from the side, When I do it, I'm stepping out to the side, bending that leg, keeping my back flat, looking forward, and bringing it back. So from the side, you shouldn't see my knee go past my toe. It might just a little bit, and that's okay, but just make sure that you're in a good alignment. So alternating side to side, and once you're comfortable with the motion, we're really putting all the weight into the leg that steps out. Once you're comfortable with the motion, you can see how low you can get. Really working to bend the knees, sink the hips back to get a little bit lower, get a little bit more out of it as possible. Keep going with those. Just a couple more. Make sure you're breathing through it. And step it out. All right, so in yoga yesterday, I talked about strengthening through the hip flexors. Hip flexors go from like here to here, so this whole section in the front of the hip. So we want to make sure that those muscles stay strong because they're responsible for picking up our leg when we walk or run, but they're also super contracted when we sit in chairs all day. So it's important to keep them flexible. We cover that a lot in yoga with poses like pigeon and warriors and lunges. But now we need to think about keeping them strong too. So I want you to place your hands on your hips, middle finger right on that hip bone that sticks out. And we're just going to raise the leg up in front of us and bring it back down. Now the reason we have our hands on our hips is because we don't want to lift our hip as we do. We tend to want to hitch our hip up to get the leg up, but we want to keep them in alignment. So we're just lifting the leg and then switch sides. It doesn't have to be a high lift. It's not a high kick. You're just trying to go through that range of motion. Use your leg. And make sure that you're using the hip flexor muscle itself. And if you place your hands a little under that bone that's sticking out, you're going to feel it contract right below that hip bone that sticks out. This is a pretty simplistic motion, but it's really important because I want you to pay attention from one side to the other. Does it feel easier on one side? Do you feel like you have more mobility? Does one side feel like it gets a little tighter? So pay attention to your body, see if you have an imbalance, because a lot of times people have lower back pain and it stems from hip flexors. And maybe the hip flexors are tight, but they might be tight not because they're not stretched well enough. They might be tight because they're not as strong as they need to be. So they're working in overdrive to do what you ask them to do. So that's why it's so important to combine strength and flexibility. All right, that's enough of those. This is a great exercise to do like every other day, 3 sets of 10, but we're not going to put a ton of time into them for today, but I wanted you to know how to do them. We're going back into our side lunges, switch to the other side. And if you wanted to add a little bit more agility to it, you could do a hop switch in the middle. So it's up to you, but just stepping is absolutely fine. And you might notice as I do these, sometimes I pivot my toe up to the ceiling. That's okay to do as long as you feel balanced and as long as you're doing it for both legs. So you don't want to pivot one leg up and not the other. So that's an option. But if you keep your foot flat, you're actually stretching through the muscles in the side of that ankle. So you pick. Lots of different options for this. Make sure you're sinking your hips low, bending that lead knee. Hips are going back though. We don't want to bring our knee past our toe. So periodically look down, make sure your knee isn't going way past the toe. If it is, simple solution, sink your hips back even more, like you're trying to touch your behind to the wall behind you, or sit in a chair. And release, go ahead and step it out. We're going to add on to that hip flexor exercise to get a little balance too. So when we balance, we use our core muscles through our whole body to keep us balanced. So keeping your fingertips on the hips, raise the leg in front to the side. So now we're getting the side of the hip, and now we're going to extend it back. But when we extend the leg back, we don't want to lean forward. We're not in yoga class today. So keeping our torso upright. Notice the change while we're in this position. Notice the change by standing upright, kick the leg straight back, leading with the heel. And now try leaning forward with it. One of them feels infinitely harder than the other. And chances are, if the exercise feels too easy, we're doing something that's cheating. Then we're going to switch sides. So forward, side, torso straight as we kick back. If you place your hand on that back glute, you're going to feel that muscle working. Switch sides, forward, side, and back. Just as when we go backwards, we want to keep our torso upright. When we go to the side, we want to kind of keep our torso upright or pull our shoulder towards the side. So that way we're using the side of our leg, using our oblique muscles, trying not to lean forward on that backward kick. It's really hard to do. Sometimes it's nice to do it up against a wall because you don't have the option to lean forward. So if you were to stand against the wall and do a backwards kick, you're going to notice you're using your glutes a whole lot more than you would if you're standing in free space. And you're getting balanced if you never touch your feet to the floor until the 3 movements are over. Dynamic balance. Go ahead and step it out. That's enough of those. Let's drop it down to the mat so that we're laying on our back. Pull the knees into the chest, rock side to side just to open up through the lower back. Heels down to the floor. The closer they are to your behind, the easier this one's going to be. So you can adjust your feet if you need. But bring the shoulder blades up. Tap one heel, tap the other. Right side, left side. Keep going. The farther up you reach onto your foot, the harder you're working. Just make sure you're breathing. We are running shorter on time, so we're just going to do 1 round of these. But you should feel your whole core working. Try to reach up to the same spot on both feet. And drop down. Bring the hands behind the head or somewhere comfortable. And from here, we're going to lift the hips up to the ceiling. Squeeze the glutes as hard as you can. And then 1 vertebrae at a time, roll down. Exhale, lift up, squeeze the glutes. Get the hips high. Inhale, 1 vertebrae at a time, roll it down. Press up and drop down. Push through the heels on this one. 1 more. Press up. Let's hold it here for 10, 9, 8, 7. Keep it high. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 1 vertebrae at a time. Roll it down. And then pull the knees into the chest. Rock it side to side, really opening up through the lower back. Our lower back is always working when we're doing body weight strength exercises, whether we're in a plank, whether we're doing push-ups, whether we're doing squats. So it's always important to keep the lower back loose, pull the knees in towards the body, back, in towards the body, back, go side to side, and then roll up whenever you're ready, and we can call it a day. So we got a full body workout right there, and hopefully it was no sweat, but we focused on every single muscle group. And if you have any questions, you can always email me, reach out however you feel comfortable, and I can help you out.